I mean, the rule for EBI is 2 hooks and a seatbelt. So I just did that upside down. And the reason I do that is I play a lot of what I would call what is typically called high ground, which is something Barrett Yoshida started, who's kind of like in my brother and I's lineage. And so the idea was to start from basically upside down back control. And I have a lot of attacks there and stuff, and it threw a lot of people off. But the funny part is just when you do try to start in reverse back control with 2 hooks and a seatbelt, you're essentially just starting in a front head upside down, sitting on their neck.
What is up, ladies and gents? It is your friendly neighborhood BJJ podcaster, Rafa Esparza, coming to you with another great installment of the Grappling Hour. I hope that you guys are having a great day. We have an excellent guest, more on him in a second. But before we get back to our guest, I'd like to tell you this. If you want to support the show, it's a very easy thing to do. You can go on over to Patreon. By the time you see this, we're going to be on Patreon, and you can go support us there. We have another site, but we're going to focus on Patreon for this next month. For $5, you could see these interviews 30 days before anybody else. And for a few extra dollars, you could see extra bonus content that's not available anywhere else, including extra episodes or mini-sodes about big topics like steroids or athletes who athletes respected the most when they competed against them. You can also check out technique breakdowns with athletes who have just competed, where we go over footage together from their matches. And you can also check out a segment that we like to call Roast Raf, where people roast my competition footage, which, by the way, not the best, but certainly very apt for humor. And I just got a note from Owen O'Flanagan, who says he can't wait to roast my competition footage, which, by the way, nothing makes you feel worse than hearing somebody who is 80cc level tell you really shitty things about your jiu-jitsu. So I'm looking forward to that. All right, so you can check that out. You can also join our YouTube page. You can like, share, and subscribe. And if you have no idea what you want to comment on, we'll give you a comment topic at the very end of this episode. You can also join our Discord for more fun and conversations that we carry off air. And oh my God, what is this? Is this a Grappling Hour t-shirt you can find on rafesparza.com/merch? Yeah, just go there. It's $25 right now. And if you're local and you order a hoodie, because we have hoodies, because it's cold, California cold, we can't really, you know what I mean? Like, we're not real, like, cold. But, like, if you want to be trendy and cold, if you're local, you get a bag like this, and you get the new Grappling Hour hoodie. This is running for $45, a combo with the t-shirt and a hoodie, coming in at $60 at rafesparza.com/merch, or you can just go to grapplinghour.com. Either one of those will get some support for the show, and we appreciate it. You're going to see a lot of our friends and athletes wearing them. Our top 5 folks who had interviews last year got hoodies, and that includes Pardia, got Bobby Winther, Alex Enriquez, really, really solid individuals who had their best interviews. And then the bottom half of our top 10 interviews, they got t-shirts, so you may see some friends wearing them in the near future. All right, enough about this. Let's get to our guest. What can I say about this guest? I mean, I've seen his work. I like his work. I'm intrigued by his work because he does things that, one, I will never do in competition or training. My body just doesn't do what he does. Number 2, he seems to be an intriguing person for a number of reasons. And in watching it, I've been like, who is this guy? How have we not talked yet? And he had an excellent performance at the most recent 80cc Long Beach Open. You wouldn't know it because, you know, there's no record of it. It's almost like it didn't happen, honestly. Actually, you know, I should have told people I fucking won that tournament. It's a fucking great idea. God damn, that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, I won 92 kgs or something. Yeah, that's what I did. It's not even a real category. But I'm going to tell people I won that one. Anyway, you guys know him as Officer Grimy. We here today are going to get to know the real man behind Officer Grimy, one, Jonathan Patrick Wilson. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, how's it going?
Very well. Now, does it feel weird because you can see the branding here? Does it feel weird to actually have your name written out here? And I wondered, I was like, do I go with just Jonathan Wilson? Nah, you got to put three names because you put three names down there.
Well, I like my three names because I actually have six first names: Joe, Nathan, Pat, Rick, Will, and Son. So, Son's like more of like from like Asian cultures, but it still counts. Um, yeah, it's nice to be called Jonathan Wilson. Previously, uh, I've spent a lot of time at B Team. I don't even think those guys know my name. They just call me Grimy.
Okay, let's get into that. Where does the name Officer Grimy come from? Because it's one thing to be called an officer, and I've seen people kind of have that in their name. But grimy means like, yo, this dude's willing to go the distance and he's about to get into the dirt if you're trying to grapple against him, is the interpretation I have. Where does the nickname come from, sir?
So the story of Officer Grimy is that there isn't really a story. Um, it's actually not even jujitsu related at all. That was just an ID tag name, IG tag name I made in like high school, and it just never changed.
Okay, because when you made that name, my first thought was like, were you in the military? What kind of credentials do you have? Were you Captain Grimy at some point? Like there was a whole backstory that I just didn't know where we were going from. So you just randomly settled upon this. Is this akin to when you go on, say, a video game console and you go, I just need a login name? Um, Officer Grimy, like is that where that's coming from? Because there had to be some kind of inclination that made you say, yeah, that's what I'm going to be known as.
I don't know. I think in high school we just used to call people grimy and stuff, and it just stuck.
I
I don't have
understand.
a good story, unfortunately. Usually, when someone asks me, I just make up a story, but not this time.
I mean, you're on a professional show. I mean, professional, but I think you answered what I was going to tell you to do, which is 100% Joker this shit. Like everybody gets a you want to know how you got these scars kind of moment. Like every single time you just make up a new thing based
Yep.
on the person, you do a psychological profile, you go, well, this dude's crazy, so let me out crazy him. Or you do like, oh, this person's afraid of violence. Actually, I got the name Officer Grimy because I actually got shot once and I had to stitch up my own leg and it got real grimy to the point where I was wondering, am I going to get infections? Am I going to live? Am I not going to be able to see tomorrow? And yet I pursued through it. Anyway, you want to roll now? And then see what happens when people go in like, what the fuck is this dude talking about?
I figure they just assume it's because, I like some of the dirtier techniques. I like a lot of smothers, a lot of other nasty stuff like that.
Okay, so you're one of those. But you know what?
Yeah.
At least with your name, I don't know that I can complain. I have a guy who he's fought MMA before, and he'll get really annoyed with my nerd tactics because I'm like, I can't beat you on strength or speed. I gotta use all these like I have to have like a diagram to figure out how to beat you, dude. So he'll start throwing in smothers. And what he doesn't know about me is even when I'm on bottom, I'm smothering him back from bottom. Like, fuck you, dude. Don't do that to me. And he's always like, you're in a bad position and you act like you're not. And I'm like, well, now you change the rules. So the rules of engagement are completely different now. It's like once you start smothering me, all bets are off, dude.
Yeah, everything's legal after that.
So let me ask this. You mentioned that you do some things that are vaguely unusual, but where I think most people came into contact with you, or at least you got the most memed that I've seen of you, is through the reverse EBI settings that you were doing. So please, for those who have not seen or maybe not familiar, explain what it was that you were doing at Main Kara Jiu Jitsu over time and why you were doing it because you so confused your opponent in a way that I thought was probably one of the funniest reactions of all 2023.
Yeah. So, I mean, the rule for EBI is 2 hooks and a seatbelt. So I just did that upside down. And the reason I do that is I play a lot of what I would call what is typically called high ground, which is something Barrett Yoshida started, who's kind of like in my brother and I's lineage. And so the idea was to start from basically upside down back control. And I have a lot of attacks there and stuff, and it threw a lot of people off. But the funny part is just when you do try to start in reverse back control with 2 hooks and a seatbelt, you're essentially just starting in a front head upside down, sitting on their neck.
It is true. And I mean, I'm a huge pro wrestling fan, so I always think of like a reverse Alabama slam. So I'm like, that dude's neck's gonna die at some point. Like, you get worried more about you, and then you think about it. And I think it's just because we've indulged so much overtime for EBI in our lives. I've covered a number of them live that I thought, yeah, why the fuck not? Just let them do it. And you could see the argument against it where people go, yeah, no. But I was definitely pro, like, let this fucker do it. Like, 100% let him do it. And let's see what happens, because why not? Why not? You made that choice, and it's essentially the rules that you are following there.
Yeah. I think if they should have let me do it, and if I would have done it, I think I would have subbed him because I don't think he would have known what's going on. I do think EBI is like it's definitely outdated. That's why people are trying to kind of move away from it a little bit. But if you get to start in regular back, you should also get to start in upside down back. You should get to start in sideways back, which is crucifix as well.
Was this something that you and your brother worked very well with? Like, has he been somebody that you kind of said, like, hey, why don't we try this? And when did you first try it? Because to me, I'm too afraid to do it. I think there's too much risk for me. Like, I definitely, I have a large head, so my neck is very strong, like stupidly strong for no reason. So it's had to support this giant thing. So when people have tried to choke me, they're like, why are you so strong there? And I'm like, oh, this thing. I don't mind taking some bumps, but to me, I'm like, oh, I'm 100% getting dodged on this concrete, or I'm getting dodged on this mat. Like, not a smart idea for me. But yet you looked at it like you were approaching it, and I think it's the look on your face too, which was just, may I please have my upside down? I would like to start in this position. And I go, yeah, yeah, let's see how this goes. So, how long had you been practicing this, or who was the one that was coming up with that in your mind?
Well, we've been playing crucifix and high ground games since forever, kind of since my brother and I started. Um, but for the EBI specifically, we didn't really start digging into it until this event. We haven't really had to do many EBI matches, and actually, we had some other stuff planned originally, but this one was just like a little bit more over the top, so that's why we stuck with it.
Understood. And you know what? I thought it would be the right venue. So maybe we can address them in the future. But one thing did happen for sure here, which is that the community rallied again with you. I'm sorry, rallied with you in a way that I haven't seen them do in a while. Like, everybody seemed to be on the same page of, yeah, why not? Let them do it. And I was just interested to know what some of the best reactions you got, because so many memes, your face for that month was just all over the place with people using that footage, that still, and having a field day with it. So what were some of your funniest reactions that you had to some of those things, and what stuck out to you?
Uh, ah, there were a ton. There were a ton of memes, and I can't even remember like any any of the real funny ones. But most of them were just like making fun of white belts doing stupid stuff, and um, but I can't remember like a real great one. But unfortunately, that was my only match of the night because I did lose that EBI overtime against Felipe Pena. He's pretty good. I think he's been to ADCC Worlds before. Um, but I did win like I think favorite like competitor of the night, like most entertaining, which is pretty funny considering I only had one match and it was just because I sat on the dude's head.
I mean, listen, dude, if you sit on most people's heads, I think it will turn other people's heads. So, yeah, I kind of get it. And there's also just the vibe of when we're watching things. You mentioned kind of getting sick of EBI. I think the issue that people have is they don't like when people game going to overtime. And I think that's kind of the issue. Then the overtime itself has some, as I've put it to people, if you win an EBI overtime, it doesn't mean your jiu-jitsu is better. It just means we got to move along and we got to keep this thing going because,
Yeah.
we can't stay here. And God forbid those days that we used to go until no time period. There was no 2-minute marker and we just sit there and be like, this is never going to end. We're never going to go home.
Yeah.
Craig Jones and Wagner Rocha are probably still in overtime right now. So, having said all that, I am trying to get an idea of that experience and what it means in the larger part for you. So, I want to ask this because you were able to parlay that into some great things. But recently, you had some competitive success at the Long Beach Open. And one thing that stuck out to me was I was walking by, I think, when I saw you kind of warming up and I knew you were doing your thing. So I just kind of keep eyes on everybody, even if I don't know them or we've never met. But I'm just kind of like, okay, he's here. He's here. And then I saw that Ben Eddy had been beaten by you. So tell me a little bit about that match because the highlights up until that were very good for Ben Eddy. Like, I think he got a savage modification of his Hindulatine. And I go, like, this dude's now submitting people with extra limbs. Like, Jesus Christ. So when you see you stop that momentum, I thought, yo, that's a great moment for you. So let's talk a little bit about your recent performances at ADCC Long Beach Open.
The Ben Eddy match was a pretty good one for me to get. I've had some bigger wins against bigger names before, but I was real excited for that match because he's crazy unorthodox, and I consider myself crazy unorthodox too. So it was kind of like a matchup of two guys who don't really do real jiu-jitsu, but like have found a way to make it work. So I was definitely hyped for that one. We've never actually trained together, just kind of like shot the shit and like showed moves a little bit. Um, I went to that tournament to beat Ben Eddy. um, I let's see, how did I win? I believe it was he actually got a negative in overtime for a guard pull, but it was a pretty crazy match. There were a lot of good scrambles and stuff. I actually did end up getting him. I high grounded him a bunch, and actually did end up getting him in crucifix and tweaking his arm in a reverse omoplata. But I was crazy hyped for that match. He'd been cleaning everyone up that whole tournament, so that was a big win for me. And I feel like it was kind of like a coming out party a little bit because I really haven't gotten like a ton of clout for anything that I've done. So I'm just kind of trying to get up there, try to get on some big shows. So
It's funny you mention that because I've known Ben for a bit and his trajectory was very similar in the sense that he was working for years to kind of build his name. And anybody who saw what he was doing early on at like local competitions, we were all amazed. We're like, this dude, there's something with him. And then you saw him get more and more elevated status through EBI and combat jiu-jitsu, and then him hitting people with like bongo hands. Like all of these things started kind of coming through, and I thought, man, I would have never guessed he would be somebody who would win in kind of combat jiu-jitsu formats or that. And yet it became the perfect showcase for him. So now we all know him as like, oh, that's Ben Eddy. So yeah, the come up is always different for everybody. And you're right. If you have an admiration for their games, they tend to be the person that you put an X on. So that obviously was a great win for you. Tell me a little bit about the rest of that day then.
so the match started off. I mean, the tournament started off pretty tough. I had a actually we're in the Springs. I had a Denver guy first round. He wasn't someone that I had trained with before, but got the decision over him. Um, Won another couple matches against some guys I didn't know. Had the Benetti match, and then in the finals, which I was really stoked for. I didn't actually know who he was. My brother told me, Sinistro. So he's a well-known guy, a Brazilian guy, um, more known for gi stuff. And that match was wild. We had like crazy scramble exchanges for all of regulation. I finished regulation in a Darce, locked up, trying to finish. Overtime, I finished with I ducked him and got to his back, and then time ran out. And I really wanted that win a lot because second place is the worst.
It is. It's just getting right there. But Sinistro's a beast, dude. And it's been a minute. You mentioned more of his gi accolades, and that is very true. But you've seen a lot of these guys start to try and be like, how am I going to do in no gi? And it's usually very good, but it does make for some interesting clashes, especially given your unique approaches to how you find your entries. And that had to be a blast, dude, to be able to get somebody who has that as you are on your ascent, and to know you're hanging, you're beating him, your margin right there with him on those kind of close kind of matches.
Mhm. That was a fun one, and honestly, I'm pretty bummed because I wanted to see the tape on it. Um, like I said before, there's no tape from the Long Beach Open, none. No pictures, no video of any of those matches, and they were pretty wild. So,
So did your team get any footage by chance?
so I didn't. I just went out there with my girlfriend and a homie, and I had some like buddies and stuff. Someone filmed the Ben Eddy match, so I did get to see that one, but that was it. So.
Oh, see, we compete very differently.
Mm.
Um, I I feel very self-conscious when I go for this one thing. It's not about the competing or anything like that. It's that I bring like a little tripod of some sort, and I feel it's just goofy as fuck. But I do it because I'm always like, I need this footage. Like, I'm a tape study guy. I want to be able to do it. And I think in time, I've had some people be like, hey, can I just film that for you? And I'm like, yes, but I will judge you. Like, I will be looking to see how you shoot this. If I leave it on the tripod, I can't get mad at anybody. And at one of the tournaments, when I had it on a tripod, I put it on a certain area. It could get the whole wide view. Somebody ran me through a table, but I didn't get the table spot. And I was like, I don't want to go through a fucking table if I don't have the footage. Like, what the shit was that? And like, I wanted to see what the chaos was of like the monitors falling. And I was hoping, I was like, oh, I hope my opponent has this. I hope he puts it up. And he did put it up, but he made it seem like he got the takedown. So it was just both of us getting down. And I was like, my friend, no, you did one, you did not get the takedown. Two, God damn it, you don't have this footage either. So I got super angry after seeing that. However, having said that, it is good that you did get that experience. I would just say this. Always, always, always have a phone with a tripod and just let it do its business. Even if you don't get it, you run that risk of, ugh. Or I'm usually very good at assigning somebody. So even if you have your girlfriend be like, babe, it would really mean a lot to me if you could get this match with my friend Sinistro, because I'm about to do some crazy shit that I'm not even sure about. So, like, I would like to have it live on because I can't trust Flow Grappling to do something as simple as push record. So, that's it. They do charge us. Anyway, that's as much as I'll say about that. I do feel, though, in your particular stance, it's unfortunate, but at the very least, you got good intel from it. So, as a whole, what was like the takeaway from that Long Beach experience for you?
So I quit my job in 2021. No, I quit my job last year because I I had a match against Andrew Tackett, and I it was a crazy back and forth. He did dominate most of the match, but we had some real good exchanges. Um, I submitted him, and that was kind of when I realized, like, oh, I can probably compete at this level. So 3 months later, I quit my job. I had another couple big wins after that. And this was kind of, and then I've had some success and good training and stuff at B team, kind of getting clout for them as from them as well. And this was kind of the first one where, going into it, I already felt like I was the man a little bit. And I had kind of set out to go and win that tournament to beat guys like Ben Eddy and, some of the other big names that were in that bracket. So, but the takeaway for me was just like, hey, you can compete with any of these guys. Like, it's time to put the imposter syndrome away and, start to do work and start to, really believe in yourself. And, because it's like attainable. So,
That is a good takeaway. And I would say this, you talked about 2021, so it's been about what, a year and a half now since.
yeah.
What have you felt in that time that you have taken away the most in terms of building for yourself? Because it takes a lot to quit. And there are days I'm sure you were at the very beginning like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know how this is going to work. But every one of these little markers, you're probably getting more confidence. So, what have you learned the most in that time that has helped you to kind of establish yourself on your own 2 feet without having what is known as kind of a shoot job or a regular 9 to 5?
Well, you can't take the shot if you don't take it. That's it.
That's 100% true. So I 100% get that. Good on you, man. And I was curious, how did you get together with these goons, these buffoons, these yokesters, these hilarious guys over at BT? Because that seems like a whole other island of nonsense and hijinks and incredibly good jujitsu. So how did that come together?
Right when I was starting to get a little serious about jujitsu, we started taking trips down to Austin just because Danaher's team had moved there and the B team had moved down there, and we had trained with both. Um, and I just kind of worked my way up in that room and started having some big wins. And so now I go down there for like little mini camps every now and then, and I love it there. They're really good. They're real welcoming, and I always have a blast. Those are some of the best roles you can get in the entire world.
It's so funny to me because I have covered them all in many different facets, and I've interviewed them before and after B Team. And it has been fascinating to watch them develop their personalities, or to show it, I guess, is more the answer, because you couldn't convince me 5 years ago that Ethan Krellenston was funny. And believe me, I had to do heavy lifting to try and make him funny. And now I see him hosting a show, and it's wild to me because I'm like, this dude, I'm not even sure he wanted to be on podcast back in the day. And now here he is being like, hey man, so like, if you guys were like banging like any kind of animal, what kind of animal would you guys bang? And then you think to yourself, you're like, well, they've come a long way. So God bless the kids. We are very happy to see their success. But to me,
Ethan's probably the funniest one on that show.
I mean, on their show, he doesn't bypass Craig. I
Oh,
think
no, 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 no.
I think Ethan is. I go back and forth on this because I feel like Damien's the one that probably initiates it, but Ethan might be the best instigator. Is just from my limited understanding of this. So the hard part is this: I can't talk shit to them about their jujitsu. I can joke with them, sure, and make metaphors, but when it comes to hosting, I'm like, no, children. This is what I do. You guys are enjoying this, but I am not terrified of any of you asking me anything or being an interviewer, because I'm seeing what it is. And yet I feel like I'm happy because people are responding to seeing their personalities shine on these things. And I'm like, yo, you know what? This is great. They can show themselves as having fun where 4 years ago, I don't think they could. And that just makes me happy as a friend and an admirer of what they do. So just tell them I think they're shit. go ahead and delay that if you want. They'll know. Having said all that, I would love to know this. So you're based out in Denver, Colorado right now, right? Or no, I'm sorry,
Colorado Springs.
Colorado Springs. I was meaning to bring it up because I would go out to Denver, my co-host for Verbal Tap for many years. He was there and I loved going to Denver. I did have one issue. That altitude training fucked me up. So is this where you're normally from? Because if so, was that just inherently built in you? It would explain the gas tank. But where is the origin story for you? Where do you come from, sir?
So I'm originally from Colorado Springs, and actually, it's kind of funny. Mo Black, who I train with all the time, we kind of go to the ADCC competitions together and stuff. She's also born and raised in Colorado Springs, and now we both own a gym here separately. So I was born and raised here. I wrestled in high school. My brother also wrestled in high school with me. He went off to Hawaii once he graduated and started jiu-jitsu. I got a wrestling scholarship to wrestle in North Dakota at Minot State University. So I took that offer, and my brother actually left Hawaii and left his gym to go walk on the team. And now he actually earned a scholarship shortly after. And I wrestled there for 5 years, coached for 3, and then eventually moved back here to the Springs when my brother opened a gym in 2017.
Yo, that's awesome, man. What were your first days in wrestling like? So I'm assuming you're the older brother here.
Younger.
Oh, you're the younger brother.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay, good to know. So did your brother do wrestling first or did you?
We both started like in middle school. I believe he was 7th grader. I was 6th grade.
Copy. Okay. So what do you remember about those first days in wrestling class? Because a lot of us in jiu-jitsu don't have that background. And it also helps to explain how you know how to break the rules because you were brought up with the rules. So to know to break the
Mhm.
rules, that's what makes probably all of your stuff all the spicier. Because to me, I look at that and I'm like, my brain just doesn't work like that. But now when I see all of your crucifix game, I go, oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, that all comes together now.
Yeah, you have to learn the rules so that you can break them.
So tell me about your first days in wrestling.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
what stuck out to you from that?
Honestly, I thought wrestling was like WWE, so I was all about it. I thought we were gonna have chairs, I don't know, tables, the whole thing.
It's a common mistake, and honestly, I don't know why we aren't doing more of it. Having said that, though, in my jujitsu, I'm always finding ways to hit dumb pro wrestling moves on our training partners here, and nobody fears getting Kimura by me. They're all highly afraid of getting put in a figure 4 somehow. They're all like, how did you hit this move? And I'm like, oh, I'm better at this than jujitsu. I have done that longer because when I was messing around with my friends, I was like, oh, dude, I'm not bigger than this person. How do you get this move on them? And you'd find a way. Now in jiu-jitsu, I'm like, oh, yeah, leg goes here, figure 4. Now it can be a heel hook at figure 4 too. What do you want? Pick one. And they just laugh. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird. But when did you start kind of feeling like, okay, this isn't what I thought it was, but there's still a coolness to it?
I think I was addicted right away. So, um, since I started wrestling in middle school, it was kind of like the only thing I thought about or wanted to do. So it was real quick transition for me. It was pretty similar for my brother. The only bummer was, and it wasn't necessarily always a bummer, but we were just always really funky, naturally funky, and like had unorthodox styles. And I think that it did help in wrestling. Got a lot of wins because of it, but I think I had a lot of losses because of it too. And just the ability to do so many different things and really not get pinned on your back in jujitsu really kind of it's just been a way better fit for us based on our style.
Do you mind sharing like the first wrestling move or technique that really became something that you learned quickly or that you adopted quickly?
Banana split, and I
Ooh.
have so many pictures of me splitting kids in high school and college. So many.
So
Yeah.
why that move? How did that like naturally find its way into your move or repertoire?
Well, really, I just saw it and thought it was funny. So I started splitting and spladling people as soon as I saw it. Leg riding was a little easier for my brother and I, just because we're kind of like skinny white guys, not built um, for just like the regular grind of wrestling necessarily. So, but yeah, that was definitely the first move for me.
It's very funny because I get this. I hit electric chairs fairly frequently, and I think it's because it was the first move they taught me, and I just carried it. Like I went to a 10th Planet for my first gym, and they happened to be teaching it, and I was like, "Well, I don't quite have lockdown down yet because day one, and I'm an idiot." But after I got it, they're like, "Oh, just do this." So I put it away. Maybe 3 years later, I'm just doing more no-gi, and I go, "Oh my god, I'm hitting electric chairs." So I get people who are always going like, "What was that? A banana split?" And I'm like, "Nah, not quite." But it's just different. And they look at, and I don't know if you have the same feeling. I'm sure you get this a lot more than I do. But they always look at me and they go, "What was that?" And I go, "It's like electric chair, man." And then I have to take a moment where I'm like, I don't really feel bad, but you're trying to make me feel bad. And you're trying to make me think like that's some bullshit because they give you this accusatory look like, "Sir, tell me what you just hit me with." And I go, I, I don't know, man. It's fairly easy to do, I think. I'll teach it to you. It's fine. Do you get that a lot? Do you get people giving you that accusation? Like, what was that? Dude, what is that bullshit?
Yeah, especially if I'm rolling with someone for the first time, they never know what's going on. Pretty much, pretty much every time I roll with someone new, they're like, "What are you doing?" Because my entire game is just wrong.
You think it's just wrong or is it just an offbeat? Because I think if you're talking like music, you can be on beat and it'd be great, but if you take the offbeat sometimes, it's the one that throws people off. I think people who see a different way in jiu-jitsu just take the offbeat and they get other people who can only do on beat get really pissed about it.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I call it the wrong way is because usually it's described as orthodox, and doxa me no, I think ortho means like opinion, and doxa means correct. So unorthodox means uncorrect opinion. So yeah, wrong way.
Noted. Okay. Well, I just wanted to make sure you understood that at its very smallest level, I have experienced people with vehement anger. And I'm like, I'm not even good. So I don't know what you're doing if you're rolling with somebody like you and you catch them with something. I think the first word should be, "How did you do it? And can you show me it?" Because that tends to be my first language. And even if I'm like, "Oh, ow, this hurts." That's why we have tapping. So there are safety rails to like put onto this thing where it could be a very educational thing, but I can easily see how people's egos kind of get a little ahead of them, and they get a little on their feelings when they get caught with some bullshit. So I say this, but then I'll probably roll with you and be like, "Fuck this! What was that?" So you are out there. Tell me a little bit about this because now we know that you go from wrestling to eventually finding jujitsu. What was your first day of jujitsu like? Do you remember that class?
I don't remember the class, but basically, I went out and visited my brother in the summer between high school and college, and I didn't really ever do any classes. I've never really done much drilling at all of jujitsu. It pretty much I just got thrown to the wolves, and then Marcus, I would just pick my brother's brain a little bit. Pretty much everything I learned was either from him or just naturally from scrapping with people.
Why do you think that is? Is it that I liken it to this for me, which is I tell people I'm just solving puzzles essentially, but I notice that other people they have a natural ability for their movement and they know what they can move. So they just kind of marry that to what normal aspects of jiu-jitsu are. What is that for you? Like, why do you think that you don't need to drill? Because I'm fascinated by those who don't. I need to. That's something
Mhm.
I have to do. But when somebody tells me like, "Hey, my learning approach is kind of like this," sometimes I adapt it and I go, "Okay, cool. Why don't we try this for you?" Because you see evidence of, "Oh, you're right. Sometimes this works a little bit better for you." Um, so why do you think that is? That kind of wiring for your brain like that for this?
Well, I was always a funky wrestler. Um, and so I already had like, and pretty athletic. So I already had like the ability to move around and stuff, already familiar with positions. I think a lot of it has to do with I'm just always playing games. So I'm like always trying to trick you, always trying to do something that I've never done before. A lot of people, they'll have like a real structured way of training. My favorite way to train is to smoke some weed and then roll around with a teenager.
No, that'll definitely not be taken out of context. So that's good. Okay, great. No, I think the smoking weed was 100% on brand for our demo. So that's good. Beating up teenagers, I mean, that is a definite thing for everybody here to interpret their own ways. But I know for you, you definitely in doing that, there's got to be a creativity that you're doing. So it kind of makes sense because they say if you overthink things in competition, that's where you can sometimes stifle yourself. And I think when I've seen you compete, I just kind of see you make great movements with your body that I go, oh, okay. And even when I was looking through your Instagram page, I had such an appreciation for your transition work. And I feel like your ability to flow into those different transitions was what I was like, yeah, that would be difficult to kind of real time be a part of. Having said that, you kind of, that was your first kind of few days or whatever. I would like to know, when did you actually fall in love with jiu-jitsu? Because you mentioned falling in love with wrestling fairly quickly, but this became a lifestyle. This became eventually a business. This became something that you're heavily invested in on the competition side. So when did you really start to feel like, man, I love jiu-jitsu?
I really liked it right away, but I feel like I didn't start loving it like I do now until I quit my job and realized that I could do it all the time instead of work.
It's a different type of work. Let's be very clear, because I don't know if you've ever had a private that just wasn't good. It can be just as bad as a desk job. It's just, this is something that I think makes more sense to certain people. And I like to tell my wife, because I'm like, well, some days I work on a show and that's a job and it's hard, but I love doing that in entertainment. It's great. And then some days I go teach or I'll teach a private and I go, I love that because I love jujitsu. So it always comes back to like, no matter how hard it is something that we love. But my favorite people are the guys who are like, yeah, I don't want a regular 9 to 5. And I'm like, cool. How long were you at the gym today? I
Yeah.
mean, I started at 6 a.m. and I'm leaving at 8 p.m. No, okay. That's much better
Yeah.
than a 9 to 5. You're right. Okay. My
Oh,
friend, you ended up getting a 9 to 5. You just didn't know it. You, in fact, got more than a 9 to 5. And there's nothing wrong with it, but you don't feel it because it doesn't suck like working for somebody else. But
yeah.
whenever they start realizing that, they go, wait, what? I did get one. And I'm like, did you write down on a calendar all of your appointments? I did. And I was like, oh, it sucks. Look at you. You suit, you sell out, you make your money. No, it's all part of the design. So I think when you're saying like, it doesn't quite have that same feel or it's different, it just is, man, this is something we're all addicted to. So it makes it more fun to be around. And especially if you get to apply this kind of natural set that you have for moving into making it something better and something more unique that is specific to you, that's got to be a very good feeling. Tell me about working with a brother here, because I am jealous of all of these guys who have brothers who they can literally drill on days with. I hate it for Elias and Liam Anderson these kids, I literally, before we got on today, I saw them just drilling for hours. And I'm like, dude, I'm so jealous. I didn't have a brother I could do this with. So, what has been the benefit of having a brother that you can kind of continuously work with and drill and come up with something?
Well, it's been pretty nice. We have real similar body styles. So I was, when I started, I kind of got put on a fast track because he just watched me go and then show me what he did. And, with him and I, a lot of our like finishes are the same. A lot of the positions we like to get to are the same, but all the in between is completely different. I kind of like to scrap and like move quickly, move creatively. And he really started out like more of a gi guy. He's a little more traditional in the rest of his stuff. He can get real funky, but he just moves like a lot slower. So I think like the similarities are what helped me grow a lot. And then, the differences and then having us having to go against each other with those, I think really kind of elevated both of our games.
That is very cool. That is also, as you mentioned, it is a very cool and quick way to fast track everything. Like having a brother that can kind of walk you through all of that has to be great. Do you guys own a gym together? How does that work? Because I saw it and I wasn't sure if that was the case.
Yep. So he started Wilson Brothers Grappling in 2017. I moved back in 2018. And we've been open since then. We did have like the lockdown thing that everyone had for a little bit. We just ended up setting up mats in the basement and rolling around and until we opened the gym back up. Um, but the gym's been popping. We just moved into a new location about a year ago. It's in a 10,000 square foot facility. We got a ton of mat space. Um, and if you're ever in the Springs, Sundays at 11 is ballin'. There's so many people there. So come through.
Is that the open mat that you guys have?
That's the open mat. Yeah.
Oh, that's sick. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remembered when I was out in Colorado, there was a burgeoning scene and there were some really good practitioners. And then I saw a little bit later Michael Diero's coming out there. So Denver has a very, or not Denver, but yeah, Colorado. Colorado has a very, very hidden treasure feel in terms of jiu-jitsu that I have had the opportunity to see and witness there a few times where I was like, oh, y'all are fucking great here. But as I mentioned, that altitude training, he tried warning me and he was like, it might take you out a little bit. And I was like, joke's on you. I have no cardio, so can't take what you didn't have. And then maybe about a first round into like warm ups, I was like, what is this? Why are we doing this? So it helps when people are trying to murder you, you suddenly find your cardio again. So that part kicks back on. I'm naturally inquisitive on this part, which is, you've already had a pretty good past year of very solid grappling and training. What do you see happening for you in 2024? Like, what is on your hit list, and what are you looking to do in this next year in the grappling scene?
Well, we got trials coming up at the end of March, so I'm hoping to make a splash. I'm hoping I get a little seed, so that I get some of the bigger names later in the tournament rather than early. But other than that, I don't have any huge plans. We'll be hosting our event, a Wilson Bros Invitational on March 9th. And after trials, I don't really have any plans. I'm just going to do more jujitsu, I guess.
This is definitely smoking like somebody who is about to smoke weed or has smoked weed, but that is the most honest answer. Let me get to this though, because you mentioned this, which was you guys have an invitational. So what are you guys looking for individuals who would be competing in that invitational? Because you yourself are a unique person who has been brought into other invitationals. What do you guys look for specifically for your tournaments that you're running?
You mean like as an athlete? What are you looking for?
Like as an athlete, because if it's an invitational, it means you have the opportunity to extend an invite to just about anybody that you guys want to see there. So if you're putting on a tournament, like what are the athletes or the attributes that you're looking for the people who would be competing on your tournament?
Mm. Well, number one is we're just mainly doing it to bring local community together. Obviously, I want big matches, but for me, I always want someone who's different, someone who's doing something uh, that's not common, because that's what I like to do. I try to tell this to people pretty frequently. If you can't be better, just be different. So,
I like that. That's actually a very good marketing because everybody, I think the issue that we have is we see people whose games that we want to emulate. And I tell people, I'm like, definitely steal parts of their game, but don't try to be them. That doesn't work like that. Like, try to interpret what they do for you and keep building on that because then somebody's going to eventually say, oh, I want to play like you played because you're your own person. But if you're just following that same path, you're going to get real disappointed when you don't hit a guillotine like Marcelo, but take the entries from Marcelo and be like, you're probably going to have a higher likelihood of getting these. And I definitely try to go that route. When you mentioned that you like to see uncommon types of jujitsu, who has spoken out to you? Like, who has stood out to you as an uncommon form of jujitsu? Because I think it's got to be kind of hard to surprise you.
so you mean like my favorite athletes?
It could be your favorite athletes, but it's more so with the intention of you said that you're looking for people who are uncommon and who stick out to you as a result of that. So who has been uncommon for you on the jiu-jitsu scene that you were like, oh, that's memorable. I like that person. And they can be new or old, doesn't really matter. I'm just
Okay.
figuring for your base, I think it is difficult to surprise you. I don't think it's difficult to surprise me because I have more of a boring bread and butter kind of jiu-jitsu. But I'm just
Yeah.
like, who surprises the surprise guy?
Well, Barrett would be number one. Barrett Yoshida, Jeff Glover, a big one, and someone who I would really love to train with, uh, Gary Tonin. All of those unorthodox styles are something I really like to pick at and stuff. It is funny you were talking about picking other people's games, but like staying true to yourself. I think it's important, to keep that authenticity. You can't really like separate you can't separate who you are, whether you're just talking to your friends or on the mat. You have to be yourself all the time, and I feel like all three of those guys that I mentioned definitely do that.
They are very unique individuals in very different ways. Um, Barrett is still out there competing and still an actual threat no matter how many times you see him. You're like this dude doesn't have to do it, but he does it for the love of the game. Glover is probably on a skateboard somewhere, probably randomly showing up at some gym somewhere. And I've had the opportunity to do commentary with him, and that was a very fun experience because for that exact reason you mentioned, I commentate a certain way, he commentates a certain way, and we kind of look at each other like, is this gonna work? And by the end of it, he was like, that was so fucking fun. I'm like, well, I can be fun. I know how to be fun. That's not the issue. It's just how do you and I find a connection? And just being open and receptive to saying like, all right, you do something different, I do something different, let's make it work. So it was a very nice opportunity to do that. And Gary Tonin, I think of those three, I think you would have the funnest time with Gary because the time that I rolled with Gary, it was just play. And it really was fascinating to watch. I think I rolled with him as a white belt, but because I'd already done interviews with him at that time, he had specifically come up to me and he was like, you will be my last roll today. And I was like, oh, that's not good. Like, so he just came over and I remember almost wanting to exhaust tap to him because I was just like, this is fucking dumb. And at a certain point, I was just so done training with him that I was like putting myself into guillotines. Like the arm was nowhere there. And I was like, no, you can finish this. This is good. I've done here. But it is interesting to watch how he's progressed too. And yet, in his most recent fight that just happened over the weekend, as unorthodox as he can be, that game that he implemented was a perfect game of jiu-jitsu to just get it done. Like, no fuss, no muss. And it was beautiful to see. And I saw somebody, I think it's Open Note Grappling, that did a little GIF explaining how it was he was able to win. And I was like, dude, that's all I want from Gary. I don't want Gary getting punched in the face. Like, as much as I like making fun of him, I'd much rather talk to somebody who's not getting CTE'd in the face. So last time when I told him, I was like, can you try not getting knocked out, dude? Because that would be great for me over here watching when you're competing in the early AMs. Well, that sounds like a pretty good 2024. I think that's amazing. I want to do this as we start to circle here, sir. You have the organizations that you are doing. So let's just go through them very quickly. On March 9th, what do you have going on then?
March 9th is the Wilson Bros Grappling Invitational. We still have registration open if there's anyone wants to join. We're also doing a bunch of 3-on-3s, and we might have like a 16-team bracket, I think. So should be pretty.
That's dope. That's great. I love a good 16-person bracket, so that's amazing. You got March
16 teams, so 3-on-3s.
No, wait, no, yeah. You don't have 16. That's 48 grapplers.
Yeah.
Is it 3 guys, 3 different weight classes? What is it? What are we talking here for 3 different?
Yeah, it's 3 guys. Limit is 540 pounds. But we're doing. I've done like no black belts, so just up and comers, white to brown, whatever.
You guys have the reverse VIP experience with a guarded gate. You get out of here, you black belt. You're not wanted here. Nah.
Well, we want them on the super fights. We want them.
Okay, there we go. Thank God. I wasn't sure if you were going the full Hickson Gracie route, where it's just like, I don't watch black belts. I only watch blue belts. No. I watch blue belts because, I mean, look at them. It's crazy. These guys kill themselves. So, all right, good to know. And then, of course, you'll be at the trials at the end of that month. So a very, very busy month from March 9th to the end of that. I'm so sorry. Did we cover the 16th? What was the 16th?
I don't know if there's anything on the 16th. I got
the 16th. It was something else. My apologies. I wrote down that one.
I got April 20th. We have that Combat Sports.
That's the one. April 20th. So on April 20th, what happens with Combat Sports, sir?
They'll be coming to the Springs. We'll be hosting it at Wilson Bros. It'll be live on Flow. I think they're going to do some 3-on-3s. Should have some championship bouts too. It should be sick. And if you need a reason to go to Colorado, 420 is probably a good one, I guess.
I mean, well, at least at the Wilson Bros Academy, 420 should be a very busy day. So I'm just saying, it's not a bad thing. Everybody should go indulge and go and have a very, very happy experience. At the very least, I tell people this. There are some people who have also been like, I don't really smoke weed at all, but there are some people when they go, what do you think about smoking weed and jiu-jitsu? And I go, it depends. And they're like, yeah. And I was like, some people, it really helps them. I cannot deny that. Some people, it just opens up their creativity. And I go, the hard part is sometimes there are some people who just get lazier. And I'm like, that's not what I want. I want functioning, be creative, come up with some shit. And so people are like, what do you care? I was like, just do whatever you want, kids. Just if you ask me if it's going to help you for competition or anything like that, I don't know. Results differ from person to person. So one person's success may not be yours. But I recently interviewed somebody who was like, yeah, that's when the mushrooms kicked in. And I was like, you competed on the mushrooms? Oh, I could not. I don't know that I could. Godspeed to you, my guy. So everybody's got their own version of what works. Sir, I want to do this real quick. I'm going to put the camera on you right now, and I want to give you an opportunity to shout out any sponsors, any friends, any training partners who have been helping you to get to the positions that you are, and to give you these great performances that I have had the opportunity to witness some of, actually. And like I said, it looks like you are building up a very good resume here. So I'd like to give you that opportunity to give a shout out to anybody you would like. Camera is on you, sir. All yours.
All right. Well, shout out to everyone at Wilson Brothers Grappling. If you're ever here in Colorado, Sundays at 11, it's a good time to swing by. Scramble brand, they're my clothing sponsor. Bead Team, those dudes, I go train with them all the time, and they really help me out, show me stuff, get good rounds in. And then really in the springs here, we have like a good group of black belts and higher level people that we cross train all the time, including, Mo Black, Dan Reese, Aaron Reese. There's a couple other people, but like to give them a shout out as well. Other than that, I can't really think of anything. If you want to compete, March 9th or April 20th, Colorado.
That's what's up. We will definitely be plugging that as we get closer to those days. And shout out Mo Black, who was one of our top 10 interviews of last year. Just a delight of a human being. Like, I never know what to expect when I do these things. I just always come in pretty positive and happy. And she was far exceeding my brand of positivity and usual like upbeatedness. I was like, yo, she's great. She's really good as a guest. So I feel like you guys are very lucky to have that ADCC trials champ within your vicinity because she's the best.
Yeah, amazing training partner. Probably my best training partner.
Well, that is even better to hear, but there's good reason for that. And I'm very stoked for the future for both you and her. Sir, I'm going to close this up, but I will officially say bye to you off air in just a second. But my appreciation to you, I'm glad that I got to know the guy behind the moniker Officer Grimy, because I feel like Officer Grimy is a good moniker, dude. I feel like that's a good brand. And like I said, I didn't know if there was a brother Officer Grimy. I didn't know if he goes by that. I didn't know what he goes by or any of that sort of stuff. But I feel like we got a better sense of who you are and what to expect in the near future, sir.
Yeah, it's actually my brother's Marcus Trick.
Marcus Trick.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it. Hey, listen, all of you guys at this point, whenever I do that, and you know somebody like that, it's just like when my kids met my wife the first time. They go, "Oh, hi, Mrs. Raff," and I'm like, "She hasn't." Like, get the fuck out of here, guys. So I always laugh because I go, "Well, we don't know. Is there a dad Grimy? You don't get these things, but you learn them very quickly." Continued success to you, my man. Keep it up. And like I said, I'll talk to you in just a second off air, sir. All right, guys, that's going to about do it for us. But before we get on out of here, a couple quick reminders. First and foremost, like, comment, subscribe. If you don't know what you want to talk about in the comment section, I would love for you to do this. Tell us if you get high before you go train. That's it. Just a yes, no, spark it up, 420. I don't care. Tell us what it is that you do. What is your pre-training regimen? And you can put that in the comment section. Also, if you want to check out these interviews, check us out at Patreon, Grappling Hour, and find these interviews 30 days before anybody else for just $5. And for a few extra dollars more, you can catch extra bonus content, mini-sodes, tape breakdowns, and a segment we called Roast Graph where people roast my competition footage. Go check that out. That is at patreon.com. Grappling Hour. Continuing on, you can join our Discord at Grappling Hour, and you can also do a couple of the following things. You can also go support us by getting some of these shirts, these Grappling Hour t-shirts, and you can go on over to rafasparza.com/merch to get that, and or one of these. Check this out. Ooh, I think this noise this thing makes, so I'm very sorry. It's very loud. But you got to see the hoodie. The hoodie's $45, t-shirts $25. Combo of the both of them together is for $60. So support the show, support us here. We appreciate it all. And that's going to probably do it for us, you guys. We appreciate you for watching this episode. It has been a great day for grappling. We'll see you back on the mats.